support. Not awkward.
Thank you very much, Freak. Absolutely not awkward at all. Yeah, I'm here with Smoothie, the support from Cloud9. Guys coming off of that victory. But I want to start off here with saying you have now locked in a top 2 spot for the regular season. So you will be in Vancouver, whether it's 3rd, 4th place match or in the finals. And you played in Toronto, and I know you're a native to Canada. How does it feel to be returning back to your home country and playing League of Legends there in the stadium?
Returning to Canada and playing like in the LCS or in finals or whatever, it's always a really cool experience because I don't get to go back to Canada much lately. Yeah, I go back like twice a year if possible, if I can. But most of the time I'm just working really hard here. So yeah, but going to Vancouver is going to be super cool. I love Vancouver. It's so nice of a place, and I visited it once before.
All right, well, you'll be playing League of Legends there, and one of those matches at the top. But now moving on to this match that just happened against Phoenix One. They kind of pulled a little bit of a loop there because they threw you guys one support with Stunt, and then they brought out a rookie in Shady who had never played on the stage before. What was your thought immediately when they said, hey, we're going to sub this guy in? When you heard Shady's coming on, what was the immediate thought?
I wasn't very worried. Like, I'm not saying they're bad players or anything, but they're just, it takes a lot of time to get incorporated into a team. So I think that's pretty hard to just bring in someone new and just perform really well. So again, I wasn't really worried, but they both played well.
Nice. And so final question for you here, Smoothie. Speaking of playing well, you talked about how Kane, the bottom lane coach for your team, had helped you so much with where to ward, help the bottom lane out. You guys lost Kane this week. He departed and went to Team Liquid. So has that been affecting you at all or affecting the team at all with the loss of the bottom lane coach?
Yeah, losing Kane is pretty big, but I don't know, he's always with us in spirit. Like, he's always helped us out this whole split, like, a lot, especially, like, me. He taught me a lot, and I wish him the best in TL.
All right, well, wish you the best as well. Having one of those top 2 spots, congratulations, Smoothie. Thank you for the interview. And now we're going to throw it over to the guys at the desk to close that one out.
Thank you, Zyrene, for that interview with Cloud9 support, Smoothie.
Wait, who was it with?
Smoothie.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. So Cloud9 knows. Cloud9 happy to get this huge 2-0 victory over Phoenix One, actually, and keeping not only the run for second, but now, funnily enough, a possibility of achieving first place if Phoenix One can unseat TSM tomorrow. So, I mean, something that we didn't think was possible here coming into the final week of the LCS. Cloud9 has a shot at first.
Yeah, the way it happens, too, is so weird, where it's like P1 loses to C9, but then help them out.
Right, they're going to have to beat TSM in
right.
order to make it all a reality for them. And again, that's a tall order. We'll see if they can do that. I imagine that TSM, we expect them to rebound, and we can get to that series. But this one itself here, 2-0 victory for Cloud9 over Phoenix One. I honestly expected it to look closer than it did, you know, kind of from that zoomed out standpoint. Both of these looked like fairly dominant wins for Cloud9.
Yeah, and you get to see the difference between having Impact and Ray in Game 2, where we see the Nautilus early pick come in as well as having the Kled ban. So
right.
Those are two things that you think maybe if you have Ray in there, you just have a totally different draft strategy. You get to see that actual impact now. Or, you know, I hate when I do that.
That's all right.
It's such a good word.
Just, you got to keep going, man.
Yeah.
You stop and call attention to it. But, you know, while we have the substitution of Impact in for Ray in the top lane, and we see how that changes the landscape of Champions Select, at the same time, we have that substitution in the bot lane, and to be honest, didn't really see much of a difference one way or the other. So, again, I don't know if there's much of a reason then to have brought in Shady over Stunt, because of familiarity has to be greater with Stunt.
Right. I mean, you're playing Lulu Ezreal. You think Stunt can play that matchup just fine. I don't think they got too much out of it unless there's something we don't know about Shady, which is possible because all we had heard previous about him was he was on a collegiate team.
Right.
So obviously, who knows what's going on with the inner workings of P1 there. And then the big thing, of course, was how the game actually played out with, once again, C9 having a really strong early game, when that's one of the things that we often critique them the most about.
Exactly that. 7 minutes into the game, let's take a look. Cross-map plays here in the 2v3, the outplay from Sneaky and Smoothie, and then in the meantime, you see on the mini-map, Contract's making a visit top lane, picking up a kill up there as well.
Right, this looks like it could have been a disaster for C9. They go over-aggressive onto Arrow, potentially while their jungler's on the other side of the map. It almost gets turned back around on them, but the power of the Lucian early pick, able to trade a lot of damage back onto Meteos there, gets ignited as well. The heal was already used by Arrow at the start of that fight running away, so he could not get topped off there. And then not only that, but Sneaky goes aggressive again and forces the flash out of Arrow, so that 2v3 turned out to to be a massive summoner advantage. All they had to blow was their Ignite, and at the same time on the top side, Contrax is making a play for impact.
Right. In the 2v3, you blow Ignite for 2 flashes and a heal plus a kill, and then you also get a kill on the other side of the map in the 2v1. So again, in this situation in 7 minutes, a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's a big hole for Phoenix One that they now have to climb out of. And so again, sometimes when things just barely don't go your way, the games have potential to snowball out of control. But for Cloud9, I think the big thing here is that at the end of their split, they're closing it on a high note, showing us a little bit more of what we had expected from them in weeks 1 through 7.
Yeah, and they were really consistent once they got that lead. They didn't make, these crazy game-breaking plays where suddenly the game's over at 15 minutes for them, but they took small advantage, something that we criticized some of the other teams for not being able to do today. And then they eventually broke the mid turret open, and then they were able to use that extra space to get up to the top side again with a kill onto Zig as well, and they take all 3 turrets relatively quickly, which was another thing that people always complained about C9's early game.
All that said, I do still think that even in this 2-0 loss, you can see the strength of the Phoenix One squad, right? When we talk about them as a top 3 team, I really do think that at any given moment they have the ability to unseat either C9 or TSM. A lot of it showcased in this fight here that comes at 29 minutes. Yes, it's a 4-4-0 for C9, and they're fighting it with only 4 members, but you do see how mechanically proficient some of the players on Phoenix One really are here in this fight.
Yeah, I think you gotta keep your eye on Arrow. He doesn't have huge damage numbers at the end of this fight, but he dodges a ton of abilities. It is hard to play in Ezreal in a team fight like this where there's these creeps in the way as well. So
right, look how far back he has to play it.
His Mystic shots are really far here. Rio has a good flank. He gets hooked out, which is not great. Gets the jump away, and then Contrax tries to get the re-engage, flashes out so he doesn't get kicked into his team. He thinks he's safe to start walking forward again, tries to get involved in the fight while his team is doing a great job. Here, shifts out the shockwave again.
Yep.
So Arrow's doing his best, and Ryu's also doing a really good work off on the flank. They play this really difficult situation. Sure, it's a 4v5 in favor of P1.
Yes.
They were still down a ton of gold against a Baroned up opponent, and they were able to almost turn this. So many members on C9 are close to dead. If P1 is a little bit further ahead, or C9 doesn't play that quite as well as they did, then that can easily be a potentially game-turning fight in P1's favor. Exactly. And that's why we stress having early game leads are so important, because when you start battling these top tier teams in North America, you're not guaranteed to win these skirmishes that you win versus the lower tier ones.
And again, that is a beautiful gold graph, right? As a coach, that's what you want to see coming out of your squad. And so, looking towards playoffs, if I'm Reaper moving into best of 5 series, this is exactly the kind of gameplay that you want to see out of C9 in consistent fashion. A big part of the success that C9 has found is coming from Smoothie, a top performer. You talk about supports, particularly in this current meta, it is sometimes hard to see how effective they are because you don't see so many Threshes or Leonas or people, champions that are going in and making flashy plays. So much of it is about peel, shielding, and just making sure that you're absorbing damage for your carries and keeping them alive.
Right, I was talking with Jad about this just previously, like, oh man, how much credit can you give a Karma for pressing RE when they're turning off the Baron, to get an powered shield off? But it is really important for people like Smoothie, who you see able to turn that 2v3 gank. He has that kind of playmaking potential on champions that are generally not seen as the biggest playmakers. He obviously has a great champion pool. He was one of the first people playing Taric, and he's a very vocal part of the team as well. So he's a total package for C9 and is a huge factor in this series in particular why they were able to win.
Right, the 2-1-17, 95% kill participation.
Pretty
That's
good.
Big. For C9, they're going to close out their regular split here at 14-4. They are done playing. Now they just have to sit back and watch tomorrow and hope that Phoenix One can take down TSM, who will attempt to rebound in a loss to Team Liquid from today. The NA LCS just gets crazy.
Yeah, P1's biggest fans just beat them on the Rift. Like, C9 is now like, let's go P1. They're buying jerseys. They're getting ready. Like, they're good to go.
I love it. Well, that game is going to take place tomorrow. But for now, we're going to toss you on over to NA LCS 2 for some bonus coverage of Envy versus Fox. Fox up 1-0.